Welcome to our last part of a four-part series around Parents' Guide to Soccer. Today we're going to have an informal discussion about soccer, questions you should ask your club, and maybe some things to think about. Again, I'm your presenter, Thomas. I'm here to tell you everything you could possibly ever want to know and more. A little bit about me. I'm soccer president for a local club here in the Austin area. I love my two boys who play soccer, and I'm an avid soccer player myself and played throughout school. As a reminder, this is a four-part series, and we've already covered levels of play, financial obligations, so what's it going to cost to play some soccer. So if you're interested in questions about soccer, what does it cost, should I ask about that, definitely check out that video. We're not going to cover it here in this one. There'll be a few, but not as detailed as that. We talked about leagues in the central South Texas area, and now we're going to talk about specifically questions you should ask your club. In general, hopefully you've watched the series, you've got some understanding of what the different soccer divisions are, different club options, questions you can ask. That's why we're here. And really all the information here is geared to help you find the best team and the best club that's a fit for your player. Yes, select is a tryout process, but you want to make sure that everything fits from your perspective as well. So let's get to it. First, we're going to talk about questions for the club. So this is your director of coaching and the coaches themselves. First thing I always tell prospective parents, no matter what club you go to, find out what makes your program better than other programs that are in the area. There are lots of options to choose from, but like any question, you want it to be open-ended. Let the DOC do the talking. Let the coach do all the talking. Tell them, find out what they consider to be their defining attributes. Is it how they teach and developing technical academies? Is it having fun? Maybe their focus is purely on winning. And that can tell you a lot about a club. If their focus is purely on winning, they're probably going to play just their best players, right? So listen to what they have to say. And along with that, you also want to understand, hey, did the players and parents last year have a good experience? You really want to understand how many players are coming back to a club. It's a great sign if all the players from the team and from the club are coming back. But if there's a lot of openings, you want to dive deeper, right? Understand why are they not playing? Oh, hey, they're moving up to a higher level team. Was there some unhappiness in the club? Dig a little bit deeper if you find an answer that you're not necessarily liking. So keep that in mind when you're looking at clubs. As far as tryouts and team placement, have an understanding how your player is going to be placed. How are they placed? Is there a grading process? Is there some sort of standardized process that you use? At least here in Texas, we do our tryouts in late spring to determine our placement for teams in the fall. So you want to make sure you understand that and talk to the coaches, because one thing that does happen is some players do not play really well at tryouts. They do better in practices and games. So understand what that is and whether or not they can be moved up and down later on. And what is it that's going to drive that? Is it their performance, showing up to all the practices? Does the attitude play into there, or is it just purely based on games and performance and everything like that, right? Along with performance is assessments. There is typically a formalized process within most clubs, but you want to understand, what is that process? How do you handle assessments throughout the year? How do we know if our player is getting better, and not only during tryouts but also throughout the season? And then after fall, what does that assessment process look like, if there is one in the spring? As far as a roster, what gives my player the best opportunity for playtime? What is it, showing up and working hard? Are they guaranteed playtimes? At some of the lower teams, and like Alpha, for example, in WDDOA, most teams are going to guarantee you 50% playtime. But you want to know that going in. You do not want to get onto a team and find out, hey, we are here to win, and that's the club philosophy, and we're only playing our best 9v9 or 11 players. Along with that, how many players are on the roster? If there are a 9v9, which is U11 and U12, they have a max of 16. If you've got 16 kids on your roster, or you've got 18 on 11v11, odds are, if you're playing, the best players and you're there to win, your player that is, the 17th or 18th player is going to spend a lot of time on the bench. So understand that, because how many players are on that roster can mean to less play time for your player. So make sure you understand that. And then again, also understand if whether that's the case or not, are there opportunities for your player to play up and guest pass to other teams? A lot of top performers will be allowed to guest to other teams. If you've got a player maybe on the second or third team, if they're at the top, that's a great opportunity for them to play at a higher caliber league and play up with better players. That is a great way for players to see what more competitive soccer looks like and get that experience and help them get to that next level. Couple other questions as it relates to the club. Travel. Everybody hates to talk about it, but how do you travel? Are our home games really home, or do you play at a neutral site that's 20 miles away? You're going to want to know that before you sign up and realize, well, that 20 miles is an hour and a half for you because of traffic. When you do travel, where are you going? Depending upon your league, you might stay in the local area. You might travel state, regional, or nationally, depending upon what league you're in. Have an understanding because that impacts your finances and your life as a parent. Volunteering. Does your club have a requirement for volunteer hours? If so, how does that work? Is there a buyout option if you don't want to volunteer, and what's the fee? Right? Other interesting things that I always like to ask, because going to 3 or 4 practices a week sometimes for some clubs and teams is a lot. Hey, do you guys have any way to facilitate carpooling? Are there any, do you guys offer any sort of carpooling options or some mechanism to help me find people who carpools? Also, kind of along with that, a lot of these kids are in school, obviously, because they're all 18 and under. Do you offer PE waivers for your players? Because that can give them the opportunity to either go practice with the club or do other academic things, because we know that they're going to be playing soccer, a couple times a week. Last one, it's kind of an odd one. Most people don't ask about it, but who officiates our games? Do we have refs, and how are those refs trained? The single most frustrating thing on game day, other than losing, of course, is seeing refs that are poorly trained and make really bad calls. I don't know how many times I've gotten complaints over the years about refs. Understand what the officiating process is for your club. It is a huge part of games, and that is definitely important to players and to parents. On to coaches. A couple general questions for coaches, right? How many teams do you coach? Do you do academy? Do you just do club and select teams? You want to know this. If you've got a coach that only coaches 2 teams, awesome. But if your coach has like 6 teams and a bunch of academy or other things, you want to know that, because that's going to affect how much you actually see your club. Now, most clubs are going to do a fantastic job of communicating between their coaches, but you do want to ask how many teams that coach is going to have, because it will affect how much you see them. And what are your expectations, both for players and for parents? It's key to understand their perception and what they expect from you as the parent, as well as from the players. Do they want you to be on time? Do you have to come to all those practices? So on and so forth. So let them answer these questions. Open-ended, let them tell you what they are. And if you don't get that, that can then lead to other questions that you can ask, right? Right? Who decides who's going to start in a game? Can we earn play time? Is that done through, showing up in practice and being motivated, playing really hard during the game? What is it? What division do we play in? That's going to help determine what kind of travel we're going to see. What's your philosophy, for developing players? Do you have a philosophy around multi-sport, especially at the younger ages where kids aren't necessarily fully self-selected to just soccer? If you're a parent, much like I am, where I encourage my kids to play multiple sports, do they have a philosophy on that? One of my coaches for my son loves multi-sport, and he's happy that my son is off playing other sports, and because he's practicing other nights of the week, he's allowed to get out of one of the practices because the coach is okay with that, and that encourages multi-sport play. But you want to understand what that philosophy is. Maybe you and your child are all in on soccer, and it's not an issue, but it's certainly one to consider. As far as practices go, pause this video, write these down if you need to. You can certainly email me or message me, and I can send you a copy of the presentation. But how many practices are we going to have? What are the focuses? Are they just generalized practice? Do we do any sort of technical or strength training where we get into a gym or a facility where we're working on strength? and agility, those different things. What are your rules around practices? If I've got to skip for one reason or another, will you allow my child either to make it up with our team or a different team? How does that work? And along with, skipping a practice for whatever reason, what's the commitment that you look at? Do you have to be at every practice? Do you allow them to come to 2 of the 3 practices a week? What's your thought process there? If you're going to miss, because people are going to miss, what happens, right, from a repercussion standpoint? I would like to say that all coaches out there have no repercussions because you missed a practice or a game, but that's not the case. Some coaches are very strict. Some clubs are very strict on what their practice schedule is and what happens if you're going to miss a lot of them. So understand what those repercussions are if you miss a lot of games and practices. And if you're a goalie or you're a big striker, understand what kind of options are available there and if it costs extra. In closing, ask lots of questions. This isn't designed to be a be-all, end-all list, but hopefully this presentation and this series has spawned other questions and ideas, maybe some concerns that you may have. So ask those questions. Go to tryouts. Talk to the club. Make sure there's no surprises on either side. Also be prepared to look around. Clubs need players more than players need clubs. There are exceptions to that, right? If you're looking at DA, ECNL, and PNL teams, they are fewer and far between depending upon where you live. But, look around, see what your different options are. Talk to coaches, talk to friends, talk to people on Facebook. There's a lot of great groups out there to understand what the right fit is for your player and for you. And make sure you set up your player for success. While many players will change clubs a few times, a lot of times that happens. It's because the expectations weren't set from the get-go. So ask questions of everyone, the coach, from the club, from administrators, from other people at the tryout process. Understand what you're getting yourself into so that you can set yourself and your player up for success. Again, a couple just quick resources that are available. Obviously, different leagues within the area of Central Texas, but my personal favorite is still soccerparenting.com. I love that site. It's a great resource for parents, players, clubs, administrators, and so on, to help set expectations, answer questions, show some really cool technical training and whatnot. And lastly, I'd like to say thank you for attending the series. Hopefully it was informative and you got something out of it. If you like it, go ahead and like the video, and you can always leave comments for me, and I'm happy to answer them when I can. Thank you, and have a fantastic day.